Hey guys, welcome back. Carter, BitsBeTrippin. Glad to have you back. This is the follow-up to the build yesterday where we built this 6-card mining GPU rig, and we're going to take you guys cradle to grave through setting up Simplemining OS. We're creating an email. We're getting the verification. We're going through every step. We're not going to keep anything out, all the way to the point of mining with a couple different cryptocurrencies. So stay tuned. You're going to want to watch this one. All right, guys, your first step is to go to simplemining.net. You can see that URL up at the top, and we will have the link in the description below for you can go and click that to make sure you're hitting the right website. So if you do not have a Simple Mining account, you're going to want to go ahead and register. So for us, we're going to type in the BBT Tester 2021 Gmail that we just set up. And we're going to set up a strong password there for you. Now, after that's complete, you're going to get an activation link here that will be sent to your email. So whatever email you just put in there, it's going to go in there. And of course, you can check your spam boxes to make sure it doesn't show up in there or not. So let's switch over to the email real quick, and we see the activation. And we're going to go ahead and click that activation to activate the email, which will activate the account. So you'll get that notification right up here that the account is now active. And you can go to the login page. And as you can see, since I saved it in the browser, it's pulling that over. I can hit I am not a robot, finish the CAPTCHA. Once that verifies that in there, you can log in. Now it comes up with some defaults right away. So it's asking you real quickly, an Ethereum address. Now this tutorial is expecting that you already have a wallet set up. There are several other wallet tutorials that we have set up here. We'll link one above for you also, but we're going to copy the Ethereum address out of this Exodus wallet that we have on the computer. And we're going to put this in there as the default, just that way it's set up in the settings. We'll save all those options. So now, obviously, we got the account for Simple Mining. One of the things we want to do is download and install an OS. So the very first thing we're going to do is click on that over on the left, download and install the OS. And again, this is going on this mining rig. So we're going to need a USB stick of at least 8 gig is what I would recommend. You can get away with 4 gig ones, but if you have your log files turned on, it could fill that drive up. I've had some issues before with that. I recommend like an 8 gig USB stick there. And then pay attention to right here of what type of architectures they're talking about. So you have essentially 2 versions of this, and one being more specific to around NVIDIA 3060 here, and then you have an overarching coverage here with this version. So we're going to download this version here, and that's going to go to Cloudflare, do its thing, make sure we accept the cookies and download. Now it's hit mega. I would recommend blocking this. Do not store mega files on your computer, and just grab this image file. Now this is an image file that has the architecture and the setup for the OS for the drive for this. And this is Linux base. So you're going to be using one other piece of software to write this image with the appropriate partition tables set up on that USB stick. So now that we're downloaded there, we go back over to Simple Mining, and we're going back to downloads and installs, and we are going to download this etcher, which these are some of the settings that we did yesterday. We kind of jumped ahead and did that already, where it was talking about making sure you had 4G decoding set up and that you'd be doing it on a USB pen drive. And then the next step, so you have the download the OS, and then we're going straight over to downloading the imager that actually will write that file onto the drive correctly. So we're going to download this for Windows because it's not installed on this machine. You'll see it down here in the bottom left-hand corner. We're taking the defaults on this one, and then that pops up. So now we're ready for the USB drive. Now, once you have your drive inserted, in this case, we're using a SanDisk 32 gig drive, you'll see it show up here in the middle. And if you don't see that, you can hit change drive and make sure, especially if you're using this on your primary computer, that you don't accidentally, if you have an external USB drive for like storage or something, you choose the wrong one. This is kind of one of those things that you want to measure twice, cut once on. Make sure it's the right drive. I've heard of people messing that up and accidentally starting to format their incorrect drive. So make sure just take a couple looks at that drive there, and then you're going to flash from file, and you're going to point it to your downloads, and you're going to select that drive image, which is what we just downloaded. And you can see that's 5 gigs in size. The smallest drive I had was about 32 gigs here, and I'm hitting flash. Now this is going to come up because it's a command process, and then you're going to hit yes to that, and then it will start the process of writing to the drive. And dependent on the setup on the drive type, this could take a couple minutes. All right, guys, after this thing is done writing to that drive, you may get presented a screen that pops up that tells you that you need to format the drive. And this I've seen before in questions. People get really concerned around this, like, wait a minute, didn't I just create an OS on this drive? Why is it asking me to format it? You're going to get this in Windows because Windows doesn't necessarily read the Linux portion of that drive. So there's 2 partitions on this USB drive. One of them is formatted for a FAT32 file allocation table, which can be read by Windows, and then the other one is a native Linux OS partition. So that is the one that's popping up thinking that it needs to format it. You're just going to hit cancel on that, and then you'll be able to go and see the fact that it's done almost reading here. We're less than a second here. We'll come back here. Now it's going to give you that as it's doing that verify. So it's not fully complete. That doesn't mean you can pull that out until you see this screen. So once that's done, this drive has been completed. You're going to hit cancel on that. And then what I like to do is you'll pull the drive back out, and you can put the drive back in, because you're only going to put one thing on this drive. You're going to get that same kind of pop up again in Windows. You're going to hit cancel a couple times. And then what you're going to see is you're going to see this config.txt. I wanted to make sure I was capturing that for you guys, because it gets super confusing. Like, people don't understand that it's a separate partition. So this config text is the only thing that matters to you when you double click that. You're going to open that up in Notepad and hit OK. And then you're going to change only one setting in this for right now. For this tutorial, this is as if you're plugging this drive directly into the machine, and you are going to put in the email that you registered with Simplemining with. So in our case, that's bbttester2021@gmail.com. Now, this also gives you the ability to go and change the network settings. If you have if this has a Wi-Fi adapter in it, we're not doing anything with that right now. We have not enabled Wi-Fi. You would hit a 1 number here. You would put in the network identification there, and then you'd put the Wi-Fi password. I personally don't like to ever use that. One, because this is a plain text thing sitting inside of the machine. You know, for a Wi-Fi, having the password on that text file from a security standpoint, I understand and I do respect the fact that Simplemining did put that in there to make it a little more simpler for people. It's just from operational security, having passwords in files like that kind of is sketch. So just proceed with caution if you're, putting Wi-Fi passwords in a text file. So you want to close that out and save. And now we're done essentially with the USB side of this, so where we can actually take this drive and put this into the machine itself. Now, after you have that drive in the machine there and it's ready to be powered on, you're going to go back to Simplemining right here, and you're going to click on Add Rig. That essentially sets up a status that allows rigs to be added to your account. So meaning, like, whenever you now put a new rig, or if you have multiple rigs and you're adding rigs, you'll need to click that, and you can say, that right now it's set for 23 hours. You can drop that down to 12 hours by clicking this, then only have it available for adding more rigs. This is really just to prevent somebody from trying to spam a whole bunch of stuff over to you. But this now would allow this rig to be found on Simplemining. Now we're powering up the machine now, and you guys can see this start to boot up. I'm going to try to make sure you see what I see when the machine starts to come up. So the very first time it's going to go out there, it's going to see the OS, and then it's going to auto load the OS from the boot. It's an Ubuntu base image that has been converted by Simplemining to be a lot leaned down version, where it's just the miners and some scripts that really set this OS up. So as this starts to boot up, it'll take a few minutes to go out and grab an IP and do the base configurations and unpacking on its first boot up. So you'll see a lot of downloading going on with basic miners and configuration as it starts to go and do this. And now you can see automatically it gets added to the dashboard, and then it will immediately start mining, and we'll get a pretty quick indicator right now as if everything's all ready. Now, this looks like it's about 5 GPUs, so we obviously have one issue that we have to fix with one of the GPUs. We'll get that taken care of, and then we'll get back to the config. Now, once everything's booted up, you're going to see it automatically launch, and now that we have the appropriate amount of GPUs, we just needed to make sure a riser was all the way set up in there. We see all 6 GPUs, and it's starting to load the DAG file and use the defaults that are part of Simplemining, which means you're going to be mining for them until you go in and update and make a change. So this is another big point, that you have to put in your stuff in Simplemining to know that this mining rig is going to go to your address and such. So just because you give them a default address doesn't necessarily mean that if you have that in there incorrectly or whatever, you're not going to get the most efficient setup with Simplemining. You're going to want to go in there and custom set up everything, and we're going to take you through that right now. So what you're going to see on the Simplemining dashboard, when that actually comes up, and even though it's not necessarily mining for you, you're going to see it come up on that board. And it's going to show a no name, it's going to show a current hash rate, it's going to show how many times that it has restarted, which in this case has been twice because we had to fix a GPU from not showing up. And then it's going to give you a relative like temperature and speed of fans and amount of power being used. Now this is the default settings and nothing is optimized on this rig at all. And there's a significant decrease in power savings that you can have by optimizing it. And we'll get into that in a second here. So one of the very first things I like to do is I like coming in here and I like giving the rig a name. So we're going to call this yellow 6X because it's a yellow case and it's a 6X rig. So we know, and we could put MSI twin browser RX 580s. That's a nice little note there. Now tags and all that stuff's nice for metadata if you have a larger farm and you're trying to get some details there. And then on the group, you can do a group overclock if you had groups of different types of overclocks and save those, or you can just do an individual overclock across all individual GPUs. We're going to do a group overclock, add a plus to this group name, just name it RX. MSI RX 580 series, and we're going to take a base clock of 120, a mem clock on these of 2100. We're going to do an undervolt of 1990, and we will try lowers on that. These can get all the way down to 890 millivolts, but on this particular thing, we're going to leave that. We'll leave memory and the memory settings on a default. We will not try an aggressive overvolt there. And then we're going to go to power stage of 3 and minimum fans on these ones to about 50%. Advanced tools on this would be giving you some expansion such as RX boost. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the default here of intensity 30. And what this is the ability for it to run some memory injection there. And we're going to set that RX boost down to 30. So here you go here. So when you expand that, it's going to give you some details here. And what we're grabbing is right here, the setting right here. And then we're putting it right at the bottom here. So it gets, that way you can see it all. You're going to hit, I got it there. And then you're going to hit save. So on this right side, you can't really see it over here. It says save. And then that will save the settings for that. And then now I can apply this overclock setting to that rig, and we're going to save and reload. And again, I haven't set up my settings yet personally for the rig. I like doing the custom settings. I'm kind of paying sometimes a little bit of homage to the Simplemining person there, but I'm making sure everything's all set up and configured. You can go in and do the configuration if you want first when it comes to the setup, but just for simplicity, I'm leaning out to get the machine the most efficient, and then I'll point it to where I want to point it. You can see the restart again, number 3 here, which is the third restart that we're doing. You can also get a console view if you wanted to see the console view of this. If you expand into here, you can get a little console view here, which is what's going on. If you don't have a monitor on the rig itself, you can actually see what's going on in the rig right down here. And you can see down here now, our averages were before about 23 mega hash, and now we're kicking up. So as it starts to do those configs, it's gonna jump around a little bit. But our power was right around 127 watts. We're gonna see that kind of drop down too as it's going through its configuration. And this should land around 28 mega hash to 30 mega hash once it's all done and configured. As we're seeing most of these jump back up to 28 and 27. Now we're well past the 153 that we were to now almost 180 mega hash. Now we're at 29 there. So this machine will end up landing at around 185 to 183 to 185 mega hash on the equivalent of ETH hash or ETC cash, Ubik, any of those DAG related cryptocurrencies. You can see these at 30.65 mega hash each, which is a pretty decent setup there. We're using about 974 watts on these. We can strip back some more power out of this rig. Right now, they're still a little high, significantly better than what it was. That would be dropping that millivolts down to about 950. But let's get into configurations. So for configurations, you're going to click at the top there where it says Group Config, and you're going to add a new group configuration. So what this group configuration is going to be, let's just say this is Ethereum Classic, AMD cards, and then we're going to choose a miner for this. So we're going to use LOL miner on this particular case right here. We're going to use the latest version. And then these settings here, this is what they call the syntax to allow, you got to point the miner somewhere. So we're going to go out and grab some details from two miners for ETC. We're going to Google that. We're going to click on this. And then we're going to go over to how to start. And this is going to give us the content that we want. So dependent on what geographical area on the planet you are, you're going to want to grab, for me, it's going to be in the US. We're going to copy that. We're going to paste that just over that server and port. And it needs to be absolutely perfect. So we're going to paste that right here. The coin is going to be ETC. You can come down here to see some more details on any of these. And you can scroll through to see if there's any other details that you're missing here. And if you like just push down on your down arrow, it'll let this thing scroll so you can see like the different types of settings if you're wanting to get a little more detailed on like configuration of things. Right here, we're just going to go ETC for the coin. And then on this, the user and password is kind of irrelevant on this. And then for this, the username is your actual address. So you're going to come in here. And they give you a lot. The one thing, if you're ever confused on this, you can always come down here on most of these mining pools, and they're going to show you kind of the setup here. So for LOL miner, this is the actual syntax that they want to use for this. So LOL miner. So the default that's in Simplemining right now is actually wrong, which is fine. But if we hit copy and paste on that, we're going to come over here and we're going to paste this over this. So it's the algo's ETC hash. And then it already gave us the pool. And then this is the wallet address. So we're going to bring up our Ethereum address here. And we're going to go into search. We're going to look up Ethereum Classic. And we're going to receive address here. And we're going to copy this in. And we are going to put the receive address right here. And we're going to put the rig ID as BBT, and that's it. And we'll leave that pause there. That's fine. And we're going to save these settings here. So save and reload rigs. We have to hit the delete key and bring that pause back up. And we're saving that. So you can see how meticulous that is when it comes to the syntax. It had the pause on the next line because I had pasted that in there. So it pushed that pause at the bottom. Well, the script didn't understand on how to handle that. So you can see it'll come up here. You'll see the notes on it that it's Ethereum Classic. You'll see the miner type it is, and you'll see the setup there of which address and that sort of thing to go to. So on this, we're going to go back a group config here. And we're going to actually go back to rig list here. And we're going to set the miner under all rigs. So the Simple Mining switched to this tab based thing. So you can have different tabs open. We're going to close that out. And you need to check this box over here to the left, and you're going to change the action here. And then you're going to go through and choose group config, and you're going to pick Ethereum Classic. And then you're going to hit save and reload down in the bottom right hand corner there. That's behind my head. And then when you do that, it's going to say that this changes have been saved successfully. And what we're going to see is we're going to see another bump of this restart, which that just went to 4. And then you're going to be able to go in and see this now applying those settings and restarting. And now you see LOL miner starting. And it's giving us this little thing saying, hey, add this API port if you want to see some rig settings. Now, this API port is for it to be able to grab that information for this dashboard here. So we can actually edit that if we go back into group config and we come over here and we add that part back here at the end of this, then space, and then save and reload. And then we should be able to get the API details. And then we go back to rig list. And we should see that here. We did get rid of that message now because it did get that. And now when it starts to run, we're going to start to get some metrics from this right here on this dashboard. And that's at least adding ETC to this and giving you the telemetry on there. Now, effectively, every other cryptocurrency, by and large, works a lot like that. So you're going to have a pool. So a lot of these different cryptocurrencies, you're going to have a pool, and you're going to have a miner type that's compatible with it. And that usually that miner type has to do with what algorithms does it support. So you got to understand cryptocurrencies are different algorithms. So does that cryptocurrency's algorithm support it? Is it supported by a miner or not? The particular mining software that's running. And if it is, then there's a high chance, as long as there's a pool set up, you could point and mine to that. That's where we talk about speculative mining. So when somebody creates a new coin and it's proof of work, and if it's fair market launch, as long as you have access to the miner that supports that algorithm on day one, you can come in here and do essentially that same setup. You find what pool is going to support it, and you would set that up, and you'd be on it day one, very first day that that cryptocurrency comes out. You are mining it if it is a mineable cryptocurrency and the algorithm is supported by the miner. And that's really I don't want to call it the competitive advantage, but that's really what speculative mining is when people are mining some of these newer coins that are just coming out, especially the fair market launch ones that don't have like a pre-mine or anything like that. And it literally is price discovery and fair market. So that's the basics on that. We're going to go through one more quick setup for Ravencoin to show these cards running on Ravencoin and how you would go about doing that and adding that too. So as you can see some metrics that come off this and the various speeds and settings, you get that kind of telemetry from there. Again, we're still pretty high on the power. That would be going back into the config, and we'll have a separate video on how to optimize various GPUs. We have literally 60 different types of GPUs here, and we'll go back through a handful of different GPUs and the optimizations in another video. So make sure you're hitting that subscribe button if you like this kind of content, and I'll walk you guys through that, through the optimization process, which is very predicated on those different types of GPUs that you have and types of brands and models and memory and what's the silicone lottery that you get. So it's a very custom kind of thing, but there is a process to that madness. So let's go in back again to group config, and we're going to add a new one again. And we're going to call this one Ravencoin. And I'm going to name this one AMD cards. And now the reason why I'm adding adding AMD cards here is because some miners do not support both AMD and NVIDIA. So it is good to know that is this set up for a particular type of GPU. So then you come in here, and on this one, so after you get those notes on the AMD cards, we're going to choose a miner. We're going to do Team Red Miner here. And then we're going to use the settings from 2 miners here for Team Red Miner. And again, we're going to copy these pre-settings here from just this point on, from the A over to pause, copy. And we're going to put that in right here. Now, once your config's set up all together, you'll see it right here. We'll have all of these configurations in the description below for you guys, where you can just literally copy and paste it into there and then just essentially change your address to make it more simpler for you. But this is the syntax that then will make it work. And then we can go back over to rig list and we can look at the options and details here, and we can already see it working. This 6-card rig pushing out at 70 mega hash, running at about 12 mega hash each GPU. This can get extended. Again, we are reducing the core clock down some to 1120. These are run a little more optimal at 1200. However, you will use a little more power. I do like this setting to where I'm getting around 12.5 to 13 mega hash per RX 580. That's a decent number for that. And we're sitting at around 60 C on the Celsius, when that's the temperature on the GPU core, which is not too bad. One just jumping up to 70. You really don't want these over 75 C and have an ideal setup with that. So now we're seeing it running on Raven. So I think that should wrap us up here. Hopefully you guys like this style of video. It's more of a tutorial style video that kind of walked you through that process. We're going to let this run on ETC, and we'll have a follow-up video on this with what configs that were most optimal for this when it came down to configurations, the speeds, their settings there, and then what did we do over a week-long period with this rig? Like how much Ethereum Classic, we'll pick Ethereum Classic out of it, how much Ethereum Classic did it earn to get some actual tangible coins in your wallet? So this will be the end of this one. Hopefully you guys like that. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Provide some comments below, some of your experiences. What are you guys mining? You guys can put that below. What would you guys like to see on one of the next mining videos where we start to go through an NVIDIA version of this, maybe with some newer RTX cards or mining edition ones. So I'll catch you guys on the next one.